All right, those of you who've logged into this webinar, welcome. We're going to give other folks a chance to get their coffee and get seated. Give them a minute or so before we start. I don't know wherever you are, but the weather is gorgeous here. I'd rather be doing this outside. Talk to the producer, see what we can do. As the title says, this is a basic look at self-directed investing using IRAs. It also applies to 401ks too, so you can use the same information roughly. All right, we'll get started then. So this is Building Wealth with Self-Directed IRAs. I'm Joe Fulvio. This is Camoplan. We do this every week. So if you want a refresher, you can always check in with us. And also at the website, there is a recorded version of the 101 is what we call it here. It's a basic walkthrough. It takes about 40 minutes, which is, I think, what we'll do here. So first of all, the lawyers have to have their say. So here's the heretofores and the notwithstandings. We don't provide investment advice. We don't endorse or recommend or promote investment products. We're simply a neutral third party custodian. So everything we present here is for educational purposes. And as we say repeatedly, whenever you're doing anything like this, you want to consult with your attorneys and your accountants, your CPAs, your tax prep specialists. Get the assistance you need to do these things right. We'll do everything we can to keep you clean with the IRS, and we'll help there. But we're kind of like the old saloon, don't shoot us, we're the piano players. So it's between you and the people you invest with. A little bit about us. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We're headquartered in Ambler, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, just north. Those of you familiar with the Pennsylvania Turnpike, we're just north of that. We have about 8,500 clients across the country in every state, and more than $1 billion with a B dollars in assets under management. So we're big enough to get just about anything done, but we like to think we're small enough to answer the phone, which is what we hang our hat on. We deliver what we think is superior service. I spend most of my time working with private equity, private lending, and venture capital guys and gals, trying to help them tap this pool of money. And I also end up working with you, the investors. I spend a lot of time at real estate investment clubs and helping to smooth the way between the opportunities that are out there and the investors looking for those opportunities. We're huge on education. That's why I'm here today. We have weekly webinars and podcasts, but we also have articles and checklists and all sorts of resources at the website. We also have a weekly podcast series called The Road to Financial Freedom. You should check it out. It's a lot of great stories about investors like you taking a journey. Anyway, I'll give you a link to it at the end of the slideshow. The founders are third generation real estate family, brother and sister team, Carl Fisher and Maggie Polisano. The CAMA is Carl, and CA, and the MA in CAMA is Maggie. Carl was a real rocket scientist, so he takes an engineering look at everything before he got involved in this. And Maggie has an extensive background, not only in real estate investing, but in Fortune 100 IT, which means that she's responsible for the platforms that we use to track investment data and client information. So they are, after 20 years, a daily presence in the company. So you're dealing with a company that's run by the founders. They like to say that they this company was founded by investors for investors. So they're hands-on day-to-day managers. So you're dealing with the original founders. What do we do? If you have an IRA, or a 401k, you need to have a custodian. So we're a neutral third party. Again, we don't provide any investment advice. We specialize in the IRS regulation of IRA, 401k, and related types of accounts. We keep all the records involving transactions you do in your account. And we provide the IRS with required documentation. We also provide that to you so that you can provide that to your tax prep specialists and your accountants and whatnot. But we also offer ourselves to work with your tax prep specialists and your accountants. They may have questions about what you're doing over here. They may want it to fit into a broader strategy for you. So we're accustomed to being on the phone with them. It's not unusual for us to be on those calls. So feel free to have them get in touch if they have questions that you're unable to answer. What we're going to do today is take a look at what self-directed investing is, the types of investments you can do in a self-directed account, what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. This being the IRS, there are rules. We're going to look at an actual investment that takes place inside of an IRA versus outside of an IRA with, non-qualified money is what they would call it. Then we're going to look at how the process works. How would you actually get started doing this? And then we've got some resources for you to take away. And we'll be able to answer any questions you have. Feel free to, to post questions. I think Michael, our producer, is hovering, and I think I just have to put up the chat. But feel free to ask or interrupt me. Nothing worse than listening to myself drone on and on. All right. So what is a self-directed IRA? There's a lot of talk about this. The major brokerage houses claim that their IRAs are self-directed. And in a sense, they are, because, I could sit at home in my PJs and buy stocks on the Hang Seng Exchange in Hong Kong. I could buy, securities on the DAX in Germany. They're great vehicles. I still have a brokerage account over at Fidelity. And so in that sense, it's self-directed in that you pick the stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs and that sort of thing over there. But this true self-direction means a broadest range of assets to invest in. And we mirror what the big brokerage houses do, except that we're set up to handle alternative assets like real estate, apartment buildings, businesses, things like that. And I'll take you on a little tour of the kinds of assets that we see in people's account. Now, the reason why you might want one of these is because you may already have experience with some of the things that you would invest in. We get a lot of people that come to us from real estate, from accounting, from financial services and banking, because they've got experience with the assets that they are looking at to invest. You get a lot of guys coming in from construction. They may have worked on fix and flips. Now they understand how that game is played, and they decide to get into fix and flip themselves. We have a lot of retired executives who have spent decades in an industry. They understand it thoroughly. And now they're able to take their resources and put it to work by investing in startups, intellectual property, new technologies in the industries that they know best. So we like to say that this is a place where you can bring your knowledge and apply it in an area that you know. There are many different kinds of accounts. They fall into two broad categories. Let's take a look at the ones on the left. All right. The traditional IRA is something you probably have experience with. I've had one for a long time. There are variations of this that occur when someone who has an IRA dies. Either the spouse has the IRA, or it can be inherited by a beneficiary. There are plans available for small businesses, which if you've got a side gig or you're independently employed or you're a 1099 person, you want to take a look at. The first is the self-employed pension IRA, which is, again, great for small companies. So is the simple. The defined benefit plan is really known as a pension plan, and they do still exist. So, they don't see them too much anymore, but they do exist. And the defined contribution plan is otherwise known as the 401k. And maybe I'll change that so that I don't have to explain it. Now, the big difference here is that in these accounts, you're incentivized to save. You're incentivized to put money in, and the IRS gives you an attaboy or an attagirl by allowing you to deduct from your taxes. We equate it to the government subsidizing your savings. So if you're going to begin to invest and grow an investment like you would a crop, the government is subsidizing your seed. So when it comes time to take distributions after you retire, the government will share in that by taking a piece of it and taxing it as income at whatever your tax rate is at the time you take those distributions. The thinking behind this was that when you retire, you would move into a lower tax bracket. And so you would be taking this money out and paying less tax on it. That may or may not be the case for some people. It isn't for me, but your mileage may vary. Also, with these accounts, you're required at some point, today it's 73, in 2033, it'll be 75, to begin distributing money out of those accounts according to a formula that considers how much you have in these kinds of accounts and the actuarial tables for your lifespan and your age. So again, the government incentivizes you to put this stuff in there, but it shares in the rewards that you create, and you're required to begin taking distributions from those accounts at 73. The other side is different, and we like the other side because even though the government doesn't subsidize or doesn't encourage you and doesn't give you an attaboy or an attagirl, everything you put in there is after tax, and you get to keep everything that grows out of that. So to use the crop analogy again, the government is not subsidizing your seed. You're buying the seed, you're planting it, you're watering it or praying for rain, you're dealing with blight, but you get to keep all of it. Probably the greatest example of the use of the Roth was the investor and entrepreneur Peter Thiel, who put his PayPal stock into a Roth IRA when it was issued at, I don't know, pennies a share, a dollar a share. Long and short of it, he's got north of $1 billion in his IRA, and it will his Roth IRA, and he will never pay taxes on any of that money. So again, there's no taxes on distribution. There's no required distributions. When you turn 59 and a half, which is the first year you can take distributions out of an IRA, you could dump the whole thing out of there and go buy an island, or you could leave it in there and turn it over to your heirs. So it's a different vehicle. And again, we're very bullish on the Roth. We like it. And we think it's a great accelerator for building generational wealth. A little bit on what you can invest in. It's pretty much the list of things you can't invest in is so much shorter. We'll get to that in a minute. That the list of things you can invest in is pretty much exhaustive. For us, we see a lot of real estate in our with our client base. About 60% involve direct purchase of real estate. Another 10 to 15% involve real estate adjacent investments like mortgage notes and tax liens and things like that. And they come in all sorts of structures, from limited liability corporations to funds that allow you to invest in a pool of investments without investing directly in a piece of real estate. More detail. I mean, basically any form of property. What we're seeing right now is the first four of these are rental properties, obviously, but we see a lot of people doing land banking. There's a fund that prepares land, clears titles, remediates, and otherwise prepares parcels of land for single-family home developers. So you can invest in that fund, and they acquire the land, they add the value by clearing title and doing remediation and getting permitting, and then they sell it off to Cutler and some of the big home builders, particularly in Texas. So we see a lot more foreign investments these days. There are people invested in a Colombian coffee plantation, which is pretty exciting, and also vacation properties in Costa Rica. So you're not limited to the U.S. You can kind of go anywhere you want. Again, adjacent. I like to invest in the more passive areas of real estate. So I lend to fix and flippers, and I buy and sell notes. And these are a great way of avoiding the 4 T's, the taxes, tenants, toilets, and trash, that the landlords have to deal with. And I'm not equipped to do what landlords do. I spend a lot of time with them at the real estate investment groups, and I have great admiration for their tenacity, and they really work hard. I'm maybe lazy. I've got a full-time job already, and I don't need another one. So as far as other things that you can put in there, allowable assets, we've got a guy with a dump truck in his IRA. I mean, think about it. It's just a mobile piece of rental property. So he leases it out to construction companies, and he makes money on it. There's also a lot of investing in debt, and that can be secured against property or unsecured notes. I do some unsecured investing with a company that I do business with already. So it's mutual back scratching. I help them grow. They provide services to me. So that works out very nice. Again, we see all forms of structure with regard to investments. And now we're seeing more activity from investment clubs and investors that want to become more sophisticated. They want to be their own venture capital organizations. So we see a lot of that. Activity as investors journey through the process of take the journey of investing alternative assets. All right. Again, this being the IRS, these are the things you can't do, and it's blessedly limited. Basically, it involves things that are speculative. So where the valuations of the assets can vary wildly. I don't know whether you remember the old show, Antique Roadshow. It was in the 1990s. So I'm giving a date myself, but it was redone. They revisited the items they considered in the 90s back in the first decade of this century. And it was amazing that something that was rare and maybe only 100 made, and there were only 50 identified that are still around, was worth $6,000 in 1993, but somehow ended up being worth $3,000 in 2003. So there's a lot of variability here. You can't put any numismatics, collectibles, coins. You can do the Chinese pandas and the Canadian maple leafs and the American Eagle, minted coins, sovereign coins, and bullion, but you can't do the Roman coins or the Civil War stuff. No booze, so you have to drink your 61 Chateau Petrus. So problems I wish I had. Again, being the IRS, there are another set of rules. That's who you can do stuff with. All right. Now, investing in versus investing with. I want to make a distinction here because the blue boxes here are people you can't invest in, and they can't invest in you. I can't invest in my wife's business if she's selling things on eBay or whatever it is she's doing. I can't invest in my kids' business. I don't have any kids, but they can't invest in a business that I have either. And we've always tried to figure out why it all ended up like this, how certain family members were allowed to be invested in and others weren't. We figured it was just the people in the room at the time that had generational wealth schemes that they wanted to protect. I have no idea. But you can invest in the people who are in the little green boxes. And I'll give you an example. My brother just retired. He was a contractor, and occasionally he'd need a piece of capital equipment, and I'd help him finance it. I'd lend him the money to do it. And I did the same thing with my nephews, both of whom own their own companies and are now quite successful and certainly don't need my IRA money. But it was a great way to help them grow, and I got a decent return on it. I gave them a market rate with a little discount because it's family, and that worked out really well. Now, I want to make the distinction again between investing in and investing with. You can invest alongside of anybody on this chart. You can invest. My wife and I will invest in notes together. She may have 50% of it. I may have 50% of it, and we acquire it together. So you can invest in a venture or in an investment with any of the people on this chart. So just keep that in mind. There are a couple of other things about prohibited parties or prohibited people who invest with that you need to be aware. And it basically all boils down to no self-dealing. So you can't be on both sides of a transaction. We have some folks that say, hey, I want to open an IRA and I want it to buy my house, and you can't do that. So in any instance where you're on both sides of the transaction, it's going to be prohibited. Now, a lot of parsing of these rules comes up when you talk about businesses. You can own a minority share of a business. You can't own 50% or more of it. You can't be the spider at the center of the web and own 5% of it, but really control everything. And you can't be taking salaries from it. So again, you get a lot of guys that come in and they want to invest in a business that they have with their IRA or their 401k, and you just can't do that. So it all boils down to no self-dealing. Two other examples. One is a vacation property. If you invest in vacation property with your IRA or 401k, you can't use it for 2 weeks out of the year. Like a lot of people do with shore houses. Um, Same thing goes for some families. When their kids go off to college, they think about acquiring a condo and having the roommates pay the freight, and the son or daughter gets to go there, gets to stay there free. You can't do that. So again, any form of self-dealing where you're benefiting from it. All right, so all of these rules, I shouldn't need the types of accounts, the different rules. Why would you still do it? It's really all about the money. Um, if you're a W-2 salaried person or you're a 1099 person, like I've been my whole life, you pay all sorts of taxes. So you don't get to keep a lot of what you make. You get to keep, depending upon where you live, you get to keep half of it, maybe a little more. But that's about it. As you move up the food chain to more passive forms of income, you're not going to pay things like Social Security and Medicare and all that stuff. So you're going to get to keep more of it. But as you get into the IRAs, you get to keep all the revenue from your investments. Now, as I pointed out before, in the tax deferred, you will share with the government a portion of what you make, but you're allowed to accumulate it throughout the life of the IRA until you're starting to take distributions without paying any taxes. So that accelerates the growth of your wealth. In the tax-free Roths, you get to keep it all regardless, and there's no tax at all. Here's how it kind of looks if you stack it up. I mean, I forget what the assumptions were behind this. So we started out with 50,000. I think it was 7% a year or something, modest, But you could see the difference. What happens as the taxable stuff just, you get eroded each year. You have to pay taxes on the income. In the tax deferred, it will grow at the same rate as the Roth, but again, you will pay taxes when you take that money out. As you can see, after a few decades, and this is a reason why you should get involved in this when you're young, is that you're really 3 times wealthier by having that money in a Roth IRA as you would be doing it outside of the IRAs altogether. So let's take a closer look at how this works inside of an investment, okay? We've got 2 buildings, exactly the same, built at the same time, maintained the same way, and there are 2 owners. One buys one of the buildings with a Roth IRA, the other buys it with non-qualified funds. All right. The buildings generate $100,000 in revenue every year. And for the non-IRA building, there is a depreciation allowance, which of course that building owner takes, which is great because that lowers the income basis for the tax calculation. Now, one thing missing here, and we've not figured out a great way to do it, is to factor in other deductible expenses that would be removed from the income that would be taxed. But the concept still holds, is that at the end of the year, the IRA-owned building, the owner, the IRA that owns the building, gets to keep all of the income that's generated, the $100,000. So if you take this out over a period of 10 years or so, you're looking at a significant difference, $1 million versus $790,000. So, but the real magic happens when you sell it. So let's say it sells for $3 million. You bought it for $1 million, sells for $3 million. The non-IRA owner is going to have to, there's a depreciation recapture that has to be dealt with, and there's capital gains that have to be paid. And so the net proceeds are significantly lower than the case of the Roth IRA owned building. So again, this is a significant way to accelerate the accumulation of wealth and to, in the case of the Roth, avoid taxes altogether. Some things to be aware of when you're owning property inside and outside. Now, if anybody on is a landlord or has had rental property before, you're probably used to having your hands all over it. And that's understandable because in the beginning, you do all the work. You fix the toilets, you deal with the tenants, you take care of everything. But as your portfolio grows, chances are you've acquired a group of people, contractors, electricians, plumbers, handymen, or women, and they're taking care of more and more of that for you. So you're really positioning yourself to move into the IRA managed property, which is a completely hands-off way of managing property. You can't do anything to it. You can't fix anything. You can't touch anything. Can't do any of the work. You can't assign your brother's company the contract to paint the property. And basically, the saying is that you can select the paint color, but you can't paint the house. So, founder of the company, Carl Fisher, tells a couple of stories. One about going into rental properties, and he feels like somebody has to tie his hands with duct tape, so he's not tempted to touch anything while he's in there. And as far as trying to save money by doing it yourself, he was watching a property that he knew was coming up for sale, and he missed the opportunity to bid on it because he said he was busy saving himself $25 an hour painting one of his other properties. So, if you're going to scale to 100 doors or 200 doors, or you're going to acquire a significant portfolio, you're going to end up, orchestrating the care of those properties anyway. So doing it inside of a Roth IRA or even just a traditional IRA is a great way to go. What else do we have here? Okay. So how do you do it? It's really more simple than it looks. This could actually be boiled down to 3 steps. You open your account, you fund your account, you make your investment. It's really that simple. And if you have funds in another IRA, a Roth or a traditional IRA, within 20 minutes, you can accomplish the first 2 steps. So you would open your account online. It's like opening a bank account. You're going to give us information that you would normally give your bank to open another account. And we're going to make sure you're not wanted by Interpol or you're not an international gun runner. And then once your account's open, if it's a transfer of funds from another similar account, like a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, we would initiate that transfer. And you wait 2 weeks or so for the funds to come over. Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's longer. And once the funds are in your account, you're free to invest. And then we can help you with paperwork requirements for investments. You'll work with the investment provider on this, or the seller of property if you're buying property with your IRA. We have some people upstairs who've got 20 years of experience and 10 and 15 years of experience, respectively, closing real estate deals in IRAs. So you're in good hands when it comes to doing this inside of your IRA. They'll make sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So anyway, it's a lot simpler than it looks from the outside, and we don't leave you hanging and wandering around in the dark or in a maze of forms trying to figure it out. We're a phone call away. So it's really pretty easy. I'm going to leave you with a couple of tools. First, a lot of people ask, well, I don't have much money. And they're worried that they don't have enough to get in the game. And really, you can take a modest amount of money and put it into an IRA or bring it over and pair it up with your own non-IRA money or with someone else's IRA or relatives' IRAs to invest in something that that you otherwise couldn't do by yourself. I have 3 partners are looking at a deal right now. We're all going to go into it. It's a fix and flip, and we'll all be using IRAs, and so we can do that together. And I don't have enough money to cover the whole deal, but collectively the 4 of us do. So this is a great book. If you hold I think it's like holding up a lighter at a concert. If you hold up your phone to the screen here, this will allow you to download the report 20 ways to fund your next investment or your next real estate deal. And if you can't get it, it is available at the website at www.camaplan.com. And if I'll have my stuff up here. If you can't find it there, you can contact me and I'll get it to you. So one other thing we have is a couple of resources here. There's a short video, runs 5 minutes. It's animated and it does a real clean job, much cleaner job than I've done here today, explaining self-direction. And it's a great recap, for what I just covered. You can also hold up your phone and do that here. This is also available at the website. So, and again, if you can't find it, let me know. I'll send it to you. And then I want to remind you that we have the Road to Financial Freedom podcast. It's the stories of investors like you and their journeys with self-directed investing. And I think that's it. And Michael, if you're listening, I don't see the chat, so I don't know if there are any questions or not. Are you there?
I am here, and there are no questions.
Wow. Well, then we're going to have a test. All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I appreciate it. Again, we do this every week. So if you want a refresher, drop in, and we appreciate your time, especially in the middle of a busy day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.